So with all this talk about privacy and surveillance and even spying, I've been wondering, is my Android smartphone spying on me? Is someone activating the microphone maybe and sending data across the internet? Well, I developed a technique where I was able to capture all of the data that flows in and out of my phone. I was able to analyze it to see exactly what's happening. Hello there, my name's Gary Sims. This is Android Authority. If you want to find out more, please let me explain. Okay, so privacy is always in the news, and quite rightly so. What are Google doing? What are Facebook doing? There's also other things going on about major telecom providers. What are Huawei doing? What are other Chinese OEMs doing? Are people being spied upon, if not by their own government, but by other governments? So to tackle this problem, I thought I would really get down to the lowest level and capture all of the data that is flowing back and forth from my phone and then analyze it to see what is happening. And when I say phone, actually I mean several phones, including a Huawei phone, a Google phone, a Pixel 3 XL, a Samsung and the OnePlus 6T. So are any of these phones doing naughty things that they shouldn't be? So to capture the data, what I did is I got a Raspberry Pi and I turned it into an access point. That means its Wi-Fi chip is used to broadcast just like a normal Wi-Fi router would, and the phone under the test was able to connect to the Raspberry Pi the same way it would connect to my router. And then using the Ethernet port on the Raspberry Pi, I connected that to the internet. So what that basically means now is the Raspberry Pi is in the middle. Everything that comes from the phone over the Wi-Fi has to flow through the Raspberry Pi and then out onto the internet. And everything that comes in from the internet has to flow again through the Raspberry Pi, then over the Wi-Fi and onto my phone. And then using a tool like Wireshark, I'm able to capture all of that data. Now the advantage of the capturing approach is that you can capture now and ask questions later, which means I can leave the phone running overnight and see whether maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, whether the data was being secretly sent while I was asleep, and then that way I wouldn't know about it. But I was able to capture a whole night's worth of data and then analyze it at my leisure. And I analysed absolutely every single packet of data. And once I was happy with a certain destination, once I was happy with a certain type of connection, I was able to cross it off my list and then whittle down the list to see if there were things going on that shouldn't be happening. So as I said, I took 4 phones, a Huawei Mate 8, a Pixel 3 XL, a Samsung Galaxy Note 9 and a OnePlus 6T. I connected them to this network and then I tracked them for at least 24 hours to see what they were doing. And this is what I found out. So the first thing I noticed is that our phones talk a lot to Google. And of course we expect that because of course the whole of Android comes from Google, the Play Store from Google, Google Search is from Google, YouTube is from Google, you know, the list just goes on and on and on, Gmail is from Google. But actually I was surprised just how much of the traffic is actually sent towards Google servers. And that certainly got me thinking about how much do Google really know about us, and I'll deal with that in a moment. Now, another interesting thing is that Google own a lot of domain names. I was expecting all of the traffic to go to something or other .google.com, but actually Google have got a whole bunch of domain names that they use for a whole different bunch of different purposes. And I list all those in the article that goes with this video, and you'll find the link to that in the description below. So assuming it's okay that our phones talk to Google because that's the ecosystem, where else do our phones talk to? And a really big part of the traffic besides Google is actually to ad networks. Now, if we think about all those free games that you've got and all the free apps that you've got that are supported by ads, well, all that data is being communicated with several different ad networks. Now here we have a bit of a problem because developers, app developers will just develop their apps, they put a lot of time and effort into making the app, and then they pick an ad network, maybe one from Google, maybe one from somewhere else, and they just use their libraries and suck them directly into their app and then just publish it. Now really at that point the app developer doesn't really know what the ad network is doing. So you may find that the ad network is kind of requesting different types of information and it's actually looking for different things that maybe the app developer doesn't know, and all that information is being sent to the ad networks. Of course, if the ad networks were trustworthy, this wouldn't be much of an issue. But we know from our daily usage of the web that ad providers are not trustworthy. When we talk about pop-unders and pop-ups and auto-playing videos and inappropriate adverts and all these full-screen adverts that come, we know that advertisers will actually do whatever they can to get an extra bit of money out of us. So it's interesting that we use a lot of these freemium type games, we use a lot of these free apps, but in doing that, we are exposing ourselves to an extent to the ad providers who are kind of trying to work out who we are and what demographic we're in and what location we're in and what kind of phone we have and what our preferences are so that they can send us ads. And that's all happening in the background without really much control from our side. Another place that I saw a lot of traffic go to was actually to Amazon's web services. Now, you might think if you're only using, let's say, an Amazon product, let's say, like Kindle or something like that, then maybe it will talk to Amazon, because Amazon are a huge web service provider, a cloud hosting provider. And so many apps actually opt to use Amazon as the place where they keep their databases, as they have kind of some background processing going on. And I'll find that a lot of our traffic goes over to generic Amazon web servers because there is hosted some server that an app of ours is using. And that's okay, because I assume we can trust Amazon to provide those services. But of course, we don't know what those services are actually doing. So though Amazon is a well-known, popular company, actually an app on our phone could be sending all kinds of information over to their private server, which just happens to be hosted by Amazon. Now, of course, Android tries to help in that situation. You've got permissions, do you grant this app permissions to your contacts, for example? Well, no, I don't know why, a torch flashlight app should have access to my contacts, because I don't want those uploaded onto the internet. And of course, there's also the Google Play Protect, which is where Google are attempting to check the sort of the validity of an app to make sure that it isn't doing things it shouldn't do. But it's interesting that Amazon features quite heavily in the traffic that flows in and out of our devices. And since I had this ability to track every single packet that was going in and out of my phones, I wanted to see what it was like with Google Assistant. Are Google secretly listening to everything I'm saying and sending it up into the cloud? So I was able to test the idea, to verify the idea that Google tells us, which is that data is only sent to the cloud once we actually trigger the assistant with either a squeeze or pressing on the right button or saying the keyword, which I won't repeat now because lots of people moan that I repeat the word and activate all of their Google devices. So I won't say the word, but hey, something or other that activates Google. So actually what I did was I looked at the real-time traffic, and I can say that on all the phones I tested, whether it was a Huawei, whether it was a Google phone, didn't matter, there's no data flowing while you're just looking at the phone, using the phone, even talking directly at the phone, nothing else. The moment you activate Google Assistant, all of the things, all of the sound around you is sent real time up to Google servers, all of it. And I'll get more onto that in just a second. And that flow of traffic in real time continues until either you complete a command or until it times out because it didn't hear anything from you that was legible. And so what actually happens is that while you're just kind of using the phone, there is a device or probably a DSP on your phone that's listening for you to say the keyword. And then once you say it, it will send that keyword up to Google to double check on the bigger, more powerful processors that that's actually what you said. And then it will activate the Google Assistant. And then all of the things you think you say, including the background noise, get sent up to Google for processing. Now, I tried tricking the keyword. So, rather than saying, hey, I kind of said words that were similar, like, pray, or okay, goggle, for example, to see whether that triggered the keyword, and it doesn't. The keyword recognition on the device is pretty accurate. Once out of many attempts, I got it to send up some traffic, and I was monitoring this, send up some traffic to Google, and it wasn't the right thing, and then the assistant wasn't activated, and further traffic was not sent up to Google servers. So from that, what I conclude is that the keyword activation is pretty good. It's double checked by Google servers, and if it isn't a true positive match, it does not listen to what you're saying. But the moment it's activated, everything gets sent up there. And I'm going to talk one more about that in a minute when we talk about Google Takeout. So before we get onto Google, what do we think about Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and all these other social media apps that we use? Well, the truth is that we are sending data to those companies willingly. So actually what's happening is that you're willingly posting your name and your date of birth and your friends and your photos and your location and what your preferences are across these different social networks, and you're actually sending all that information willingly up to Facebook or Twitter or to Instagram or whatever. So there's not really much of a privacy issue here because you're doing it willingly. So let's just talk about Google for a second. Google have a service called Takeout, which allows you to download all the data that Google has about you. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on just that entire process over on the Gary Explains channel, so do make sure you go over there and check that out. But having done that for myself, there was a couple of things I just wanted to point out that were quite scary. First of all, of course, we know that Google has everything about me. All my emails are in Google, all my photos are in Google, I search Google Engine, I watch videos on YouTube, so of course Google has all that information. It knows what I've searched for, it knows what are in my emails, it knows what photos I've taken, it knows my location. So all that stuff is there, but the thing to remember is that Google keeps it. Google keeps that data. It doesn't just keep it for a day. I've got records when I did my takeout going back to 2015, 2014, because Google keeps hold of all of it. So remember that whatever you do on Google, it's in a permanent record somewhere. Now there's a whole different issue about who has access to that, but the data exists. It exists somewhere on a server that can demonstrate certain things about what you've done and where you've done it and so on. And the other thing that I found pretty interesting was that all of those Google Assistant commands that I said to my Google Home Mini are stored in MP3 on Google servers. And when you do the takeout, you get a big file of all the MP3 files of commands that you have said. Now that's okay when I've said, Google, turn up the volume to 50% or whatever. But an interesting one is when I've activated Google, then someone comes into the room and says, dinner's ready, let's just use something benign, and I've then not completed my command with Google and I've stopped it and I've gone off to dinner. Now that call, dinner's ready, has been recorded and is in an MP3 file sitting on Google servers. Now imagine someone said something more delicate to you. Imagine someone said something that you don't want recorded. Actually, the moment you activated Google Assistant, all of that data, including commands that didn't do what they were meant to do, are recorded up there for Google. Now on the Gary Explains video I'm going to play some of those for examples of background noise that exist in some of my own personal recordings, so you can see what kind of things Google have about you. And one more quick thing to mention about Google Takeout is that it has a complete history of all the things I've purchased online. And when I mean all the things, I mean from Amazon, from eBay, from iTunes, even airplane tickets. And I'll go more into detail of that in the Gary Explains video, but Google have a copy of all of your purchases that you've made online, even the ones that are not even associated with Google in any way whatsoever. So if you want to find out why that is, go and watch that video on Gary Explains. Okay, so let's talk about spying in terms of espionage for a moment. If you go back before the advent of the smartphone, of course, every major government, secret police, spy agency was involved across the world in surveillance of one kind or another. It's important for national security is one argument, and that is certainly true in certain areas. But of course, in those days, it was a case of, well, send a white van outside the house, point a directional microphone up to the window, big long lens on the camera, let's try to spy on this person. And that still happens today, of course. Traditional spycraft, traditional espionage, traditional surveillance is still occurring. The difference is with the advent of smartphones, what's actually happened is that every person is carrying around a camera and a microphone in their pocket. Now, is there a way for Google to activate that in their normal way? No, there isn't. Is there a way for Facebook to activate that in the normal way? No, there isn't. Will Google or Facebook activate that if a police federal agency comes and says, we want you to activate the microphone on Gary's phone? No, that won't happen. But recent events, for example, surrounding the Saudi Arabians, for example, have shown that there are ways of activating people's phones unknowingly, and that is because all software has bugs in it. All software is written by people and they write the software and it has errors in it, and there are things called zero-day exploits, which means it's a bug that's unknown, so it's been known for zero number of days. Google or Apple or Microsoft had 0 days, no days to try to fix it, and companies sell those bugs, how they can access through a bug, not through a back door, but through an error in the software, how they can access phones, make them activate their microphones or activate their cameras, and they sell them to nation states for millions of dollars. I mean millions of dollars, like $5 million. And so when you have a nation state that wants to perform surveillance on a particular individual, for them 5 million in the overall budget of a large country is nothing. They pay it. They get a way of accessing individuals' phones because they effectively use unknown, unintentional ways into the phone. Now, of course, Apple and Google and Microsoft are trying very hard to close all of those doors, all of those loopholes, all of those mistakes. But if it's 0 day, it means it's unknown. So they have no way of actually trying to fix it. And so can someone spy on you? Well, can your neighbor? No. Can Google? No. Can a nation state? Yes, if they buy the right 0 day exploits from a security company. And we've just had recent confirmation of that, of course, in recent history. So there you go. So what does that all mean in summary? Do companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter know about us? Yes, they do. We willingly give them loads of data. We willingly post things on social media. We willingly reveal so much about ourselves. And companies like Google, because the whole of Android is tied into Google, everything we do gets sucked up into Google's massive networks and servers, including our location, including the books that we've read, including the phrases we've searched for, including the videos we've watched. And Twitter, for example, state very clearly in their privacy policy that they will use your tweets, the tweets that you retweet, the tweets that you like, and things like that to determine your language, your gender, your age group, and other indicators about who you are, so that they know and can profile who you are, and they can try to sell you advertising. Of course, that is the key to make money from you. And if Twitter do that, and they say that very clearly in their privacy policy, all the companies do that, and so they are profiling you so that they can sell you things. So you just be cautious about what you're posting and where you're posting it, because someone somewhere is going to read it. So in summary, did I find any actual activity that I didn't expect on these phones? No. There were no secret messages being sent off to servers in China or Russia or North Korea or wherever you think a bad guy is going to sit with his server. All of the traffic looked to be legitimate from the very beginning. Okay, so your Huawei phone isn't spying on you. Okay, I tested a Huawei phone, it's not spying on you. Your Pixel XL3 is not spying on you. But there are legitimate things that are covered by privacy policies that we've all signed up to that all these companies are taking advantage of. That is an absolute fact. And so there you go. My name is Gary Sims. This is Android Authority. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Gary Explains video channel. And well, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.